Hello, everyone. Tonight we will relax with the story of what a day in the life of a Roman warrior would be like. You are a Roman soldier, but don't think of the majestic images in the movies. No, in real life, your spine creaks every time you turn over. Your bed is made of compressed earth, and your pillow is an iron helmet. It's not even dawn yet, but the trumpets are already sounding like an angry god waking the whole camp. You open your eyes to the chilly darkness, your breath condensing into mist. No rooster crows, no alarm clock, just the sound of footsteps outside, and a soft groan from your comrade lying next to you, who seems to be dreaming of Rome again. You wake up with a start, sitting up and hitting your head on the barricade. For the third time this week, you rub your forehead, curse under your breath, and start pulling your damp tunic over your body. It smells musty. It smells sweaty. And it smells, well, you hope it's just forgotten cheese. In a frontier camp, sleep is just a break between duties. You can't remember the last time you slept through a night. The daily routine is written out like a religious ritual. Wake, drill. Eat, march, build. Stand guard. Fight, repeat. Outside the tent, the sky is gray and the mist is so thick you can taste it. The mud is ankle deep, and you swear you hear a squish every time you pull your foot out of the ground. A question comes to mind. Why didn't Roman boots have closed soles? Oh, right, to allow blood and urine to drain more easily. How heartwarming. You drag yourself to the communal toilet area, which is a long row of holes with a few wooden planks across them. Next to it is a communal stick and sponge that everyone pretends not to see. And you know what? Archaeologists have confirmed this to be true. Someone once joked, in the Roman army, you shared everything, including your gut bacteria. After your morning ordeal of liberation, you wash your face with colder-than-human water and join the ranks assembled in the courtyard of the camp. Each warrior, like you, looks like he's having an internal debate. Should I stand up straight or just lie down and die? The centurion, the commanding officer, appears. His face is cold as iron, his voice like a sword. You hear the orders. Check your weapons. Check your armor. Prepare to move into the western forest. You don't react, because you know reacting won't change anything. You examine your shield, a large scutum, curved like a turtle shell and heavy as sin. You remember the first time you practiced carrying it, and how your shoulders felt like they were going to snap. Then there's your cockerel helmet, its curved top seemingly aimed at the sky. Some say it was designed to block blows from above. Others say it was designed to look more menacing. The truth, probably to hide your bad hair. A fun historical event this morning, the anniversary of the start of the Britannia campaign, where you stand, your feet in the mud. General Agricola once camped not far from here. And you sink your pins and teeth into a loaf of rock-hard bread. You try to chew the dried flour that people call food. It's like gnawing on a lump of salted lime. Some say Roman bread can last for years. You believe it, because it doesn't feel like food. It feels like building material. And then, when you thought the morning was bad enough, it starts to rain. Not a heavy rain, but a steady drizzle that slowly soaks your shirt from the inside out. You sigh. Have you ever seen Roman soldiers whining in movies? No, because they don't have the right. But you do, because you are you. And you are tired. As you tie your shoelaces, a mouse jumps across your foot. You are startled. Your teammates laugh. Someone jokes. It's looking for your hat to try on. You laugh along, not because you're happy, but because if you don't, you'll cry. Strange thing this morning, a young soldier said he heard the sound of a harp deep in the woods. A melodious sound, like a flute, but with a wailing echo. Could be the wind, could be a hallucination, or could it be the Druids? Historians still debate whether the Druids ever used music in their rituals. But for you right now, any sound that isn't a scream is welcome. You stand in line, ready for a long day. In the rain, under the weight of your armor, you feel incredibly small. But you are part of the greatest war machine the ancient world has ever seen. And today you begin again. You bend over, adjusting the straps of your loricus segmentata, a piece of armor that someone thought would make you look like a walking mooncake box. Every time you bend over, you feel like you're playing a game of flexibility that your spine doesn't agree with. The sky is still gray, and you start to wonder, is sunlight a privilege reserved for generals? Every morning, you had to put on 66 pounds of gear. Helmet, shirt, shield, sword, darts, backpack, pickaxe, pots, pans, and even a camp stake. People used to joke that Roman soldiers were highly organized manual labor. But you know, it was more like a picnic from hell. As you try to squeeze your feet into your hobnailed boots, a fellow soldier tosses you a rock-hard piece of cheese. Eat it. It's better than nothing. You nibble on a corner. Mistake. Your teeth nearly fall out. Some say cheese is the army's sidearm. Throwing it at the enemy will cause serious injury. The truth is, it hurts inside first. You receive your morning ration, a bowl of porridge made of wheat and water. To call it porridge is a stretch of the imagination. It has the texture of freshly mixed cement. Another soldier adds honey, and everyone immediately whispers as if he has done something sacrilegious. Arguments break out. The porridge should be salty. No, sweet is the tradition. What tradition? My mother's tradition. You remain silent. While they argue, you secretly pour half the bowl into your helmet to cool yourself. A historical event is mentioned during the meal. Today is the anniversary of the Battle of Gergovia, where Julius Caesar was defeated. One of the soldiers whispers, "Don't let the centurion hear. He believes Caesar is immortal." You smile. After all, it's comforting to think that great men have failed. You turn back to your weapon. Gladius, your short sword, has gone dull. You grind the steel against the stone, the creaking sound echoing like threats from Mars. A comrade asks, "Do you believe Mars is really incarnate?" You shake your head, then nod. At this point, you are willing to believe anything. As the centurion passed, you straightened your back. He glanced at you, as if his gaze could scrape the mud off your boots. "We're going into the woods," he said. "Enemies may be hiding. Keep formation. Keep quiet. And don't die." You nod. Don't die sounds as simple as your mother telling you to wear a coat when you go out. But here, it's a rule of survival. You check your backpack, rations, armor oil, a water skin, and even a small statue of Mercury. You're not superstitious, but you're not stupid either. Some say the Mercury statue brings speed, luck, and relief from tired legs. It's probably just a rumor from the statue seller, but you have nothing to lose. As you step out of the barracks, your feet tread on wet grass, the smell of earth permeating your nostrils. It's still not light enough to see the gleaming shields beside you reflected like mirrors. There's something about the scene that makes you feel eerie. The silence of 80 men preparing to enter the woods. No one speaks, just the sound of breathing and steel clashing. Then something strange happened. A goose wandered through the ranks. It walked quietly, solemnly, and proudly. One of the soldiers exclaimed, "There it is again, Juno's goose." Some said the goose had once saved Rome from a raid. Others thought it was just good for screaming. But no one touched it either. You didn't either. You were hungry, you were superstitious, and Goose was tough. On your way out of the camp, you pass a large wooden gate, engraved with the name of the unit, Legio 9 Hispana. Rumor has it that the entire unit eventually disappeared without a trace. Historians disagree on this. Some believe they were ambushed and wiped out. Others say they changed their name and moved their operations. You don't know, but the thought sends a shiver down your spine. The army moves into a line. You are in the middle. In front of you is the sweaty back of another soldier. Behind you, the rhythmic pounding of footsteps like a war drum. You take each step, feeling your muscles contract under the iron. Your shoulders ache, and your mind whirl with the only question, where am I going? But don't ask out loud. Because in the Roman army, asking too many questions often resulted in being assigned special duties. And special here often meant mortal danger. Every step, every breath, every ache in the back, it's all part of the warrior's life. You tell yourself, survive the day, and you win. Everything else, just an extension of the mission. The trail leads you into the woods, where sunlight is a rumor. The trees tower, their roots twisting like giant snakes entwined under the rotting leaves. A trumpet call is as soft as a breath. Be quiet. You pace so as not to step on a broken branch. The only thing that breaks the silence is the clanking of armor, like a chorus of metal out of tune. You remember the centurion's words. The forest is where the satyrs test the courage of Roman soldiers. A soldier in front whispers, or where barbarians test the sharpness of their axes. You don't know whether to laugh or sigh. The deeper you go, the thicker the air becomes. Moisture rises from the ground, as if the forest itself were breathing. You feel a tickle on the back of your neck, as if you're being watched. Not by people, by trees. Someone once said, the Celts believed that every tree had a soul. You hope the tree doesn't fall on your head. Suddenly the centurion raises his hand. Everyone stops. Your ears are as tight as a bowstring. There's a sound faint, like footsteps on moss. All the warriors have pila darts ready. Your hands tighten on the hilts of your swords. Sweat seeps out under your armor, sticky like oil. A deer darts out of the bushes. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief. One soldier smacks his lips. If that were a Britannian soldier, I would be dead. You laugh awkwardly. But the truth is, in the woods, you're not a fighter, you're a target. Today's historical event? Very relevant. In 52 BC, Julius Caesar was ambushed in the Ardennes forest. He survived because scouts warned him. You only have your sixth sense, and that sense is on vacation. As you walk on, you notice strange tracks. Scored bark, old charcoal, small, round footprints. Celts, no doubt about it. Fresh tracks. You secretly hope they're gone. You know something weird? The Romans believed that Celts' hair glowed at night, thanks to a special hair oil. That's right. The oil smelled like vinegar mixed with fire. And if you were ever around an enemy who used it, you'd know it. The smell would stick to your armor for weeks. A whistle sounded. Everyone turned their shields. You followed suit, breathing hard. But it was the stork. Someone cursed under their breath. The centurion looked around and gestured for him to continue. But you knew. The forest was not innocent. The forest remembered. The squad comes to a stream. The water is cold as a knife. You bend down to drink. Your hands shake. A leech clings to your shoe. You yank it away. A comrade says, "Be careful. There are leeches that suck blood and sing." You look at him, puzzled. "Just kidding." He winks. "But if it sings Pan's song, run." You smile slightly, but inside you're thinking, if leeches could sing, Rome would probably hire them as battlefield entertainers. At noon, you rest under an oak tree. Your back creaks like dry wood. You eat a piece of pressed bread and a slice of dried meat that you swear had a life of its own before it was salted. Someone starts telling ghost stories. Worse, real ones. Some say they've seen white figures in the woods, holding skulls. Maybe druids, maybe warrior spirits. Another chimed in. Historians still debate whether druids actually used skulls as lanterns. But one thing I know for sure, we have no lanterns other than the moon. You sigh. Academic debate doesn't ease your hunger or your aching feet. You just want to go back to your barracks, take off your armor, and sleep without anyone shouting alert. Alert. Around noon, the column changes direction. You notice. The trees are thinning. The ground is softer. There are rubble on the ground. Signs of a settlement. Maybe an old village. Maybe a trap. The centurion ordered a temporary camp. No one objected. Given the choice between dying from ambush and dying from exhaustion, Everyone chose sitting down first. You start digging. That's right. Whenever they camped, Roman soldiers had to dig ditches, erect fences, and set up camp. There was no such thing as resting under a tree. That was considered suicide to the Romans. The camp was a fortress. And you, the little soldier, were a living brick in that wall. As you hammer in the stakes, the sky turns a pale orange. You feel your breath evaporate into the air like thin smoke. A comrade hums, an old song, a Latin tune with a Gallic accent. You listen, but you don't understand the words. But your heart softens. And then, as the last light fades, you sit by your little charcoal stove, warming your hands, staring into the distance. Maybe tomorrow you'll be called out on patrol. Maybe you'll be attacked. Or maybe, just maybe, you'll live to go back to Rome, buy a little farm, plant grapes, and tell jokes to your grandchildren. But that's in the future. Now, you take a bite of your cake, take a sip of water, pull your shirt closer, and tell yourself, I'm still alive. I'm still a Roman soldier. I'm not broken. The sun has barely risen when it is swallowed by gray clouds. You yawn, your lips dry, the smell of last night's fire still lingering on your sleeves. The cold morning air is a reminder that you are on enemy soil, not at home with soft pillows and warm blankets. The formation moves early, before the fog clears. You pull on your bootlaces, adjusting the armor that is chafing against your neck. Whoever designed the collar like that must hate humanity. The centurion pointed to a low hillside. Speed up. This morning's target is the old lookout point of the local guardhouse. You didn't have to ask why. You knew. High was life, low was death. Visibility was the greatest luxury in war, one you paid for in blood. You climbed the hill, your feet sinking into the mud. Each step feels like the jealous hands of the earth. One soldier slips and falls backwards, and the whole squad laughs. Careful, Flavius. The soil here has a picky taste. You laugh along, but your legs are shaking with fatigue. You reach the top, panting, hands on your knees. Ahead is the ruins of an old lookout, broken stone, charred wood, and a few pieces of windblown pottery. It may have once been a place where local soldiers watched the trail, now a rabbit nest. But from here, you can see the valley opening up, with a trail winding like a thread through the forest. If I were a Celt, you think, I'd be right around that bend. The centurion thinks so, too. He orders a sentry box erected. You and a few others set up a tent, not for shelter, but to shield you from the hail of arrows. You take the watch. An hour, but an hour on a hilltop, with no radio, no TikTok, no chairs. That's longer than 4 years of college combined. You look down at the valley. Remember the Battle of Gergovia, 52 BC. Caesar lost because of bad terrain and misinformation. Without the vantage point you have, his entire army was led into a trap by the Gauls. You glance at the centurion, wondering, does he know if he's playing Caesar or the victim? The wind picks up again. You pull your cloak closer. Suddenly, in the distance, you hear a rattling sound. You strain your eyes. A wild horse, a caravan, or you don't dare guess. You alert the centurion. He hands you an ancient brass telescope, a hollow tube with a lens as hazy as memory after a night of drinking. You look closely. A group of people are moving, not in formation, not wearing armor, but they have weapons. Short axes, spears, long hair tied with leather straps. Celts. You hand the tube back to the centurion, saying simply, "We have a visitor." The meeting was quick. No one shouted. Everyone just looked at each other, exchanging glances like shuffled cards. The orders were to stand by. No action, no approach, no presence. The scouts would circle. You stayed on the hill. You take your watch again, this time without blinking. You listen to every snapping branch, every bird that stops singing. The silence of nature is more terrifying than the roar of war. Fun fact, The Romans believed that every warrior should carry a coin under his tongue to pay Sharon, the ferryman who ferried souls across the river Styx. You feel your pocket and find the coin you slipped into when you left camp. Not because of superstition, but because, who knows, if you die in a strange forest, at least you get a ticket on the boat. When the scouts returned, they brought word. The Celts were displaced villagers. No heavy weapons, no intention of attacking. The centurion nodded, ordering a midday move, quickly off the hill to avoid being tracked. You may camp for lunch. Today's rations are boiled beans and a slice of slate-hard bread. You tap your shield. The sound is identical. Another soldier grumbles. This bread must have been used to pave the Appian Way. You laugh, but eat it all anyway. Hunger overcomes reason. Then a debate began. A rookie asked, why didn't the Celts surrender to Rome if they knew they would lose? An older soldier replied, historians argue. Some say it was for honor, others say it was because of their faith in the forest gods. You chimed in. Maybe they thought we were invaders. There was a moment of silence. No one argued, because it was true, depending on where you stood. Who was a hero and who was a traitor. It was relative. As the afternoon sets in, you set off again, through the low grass, knee-deep and damp as a towel you forgot to wash. With each step, your shoes squish like a forced kiss. A soldier exclaims, this must be the land where Neptune sheds his tears. Someone replies, no, it's where Pluto empties his chamber pot. You laugh out loud. You laugh at the joke. And you laugh because you need laughter like you need air. Sometimes, in a campaign, laughter is a weapon against hopelessness. Before dusk, the army reaches a wooden bridge. Below is a small river with rapids and white foam. Before crossing, the centurion makes you check the structure. You step on it, listening to the creaking of the wood. The bridge is fine, but the feeling of crossing the river always makes you shiver. Because if someone burns the bridge behind you, the message could not be clearer. There's no turning back. You cross. Your eyes scan the sky. Thick clouds, pale light. Tomorrow it might rain, or it might be worse than rain. But tonight, you are alive, and you have shoes to tread on. You wake before dawn. There's no rooster crowing, just the heavy breathing of the soldier lying next to you and the uninvited choir of insects. It is colder than yesterday. Dew forms on your armor, droplets like metallic tears. You reach for your shoes, sneaky from the night's dew. In that moment you think, if life is a dream, then this part must be faulty programming. The shoes are stiff, your back hurts, and the feeling like you're being watched. The centurion signals to keep quiet. Absolute silence. Something to the south. You creep to the edge of the camp, ducking behind a bush. A shadow moves through the woods, fast, low, and silent. Not soldiers, not animals. A scout turns, panting. Scouts, a small group, just disappeared toward the hills. The centurion does not hesitate. He gives the order to pursue. And so you strap on your armor again and run again. But this time not along the road. This time through the forest. Branches whip at your face like the hands of an angry Roman grandmother. Leaves are wet and slippery. You almost fall. Behind you, a young soldier shouts, I hate trees. Give me Roman marble. After about half a mile, you catch a man. No armor, just a fur cloak. A Celt. He doesn't fight back. Just looks at you with a knowing look. No fear, no pleading. As if he knows you won't kill him here. And that's true. Centurion doesn't allow for summary executions. The prisoner is taken back to camp, bound with rough rope. Over breakfast, watery porridge with a few hard beans, the centurion interrogates. You stand by, listening to every word. The Celt speaks Latin with a heavy accent, like wind blowing through a crack in the rocks. I am not alone, he says. We know you are coming, and you will not leave. No one says anything. You eat. The beans are still unpalatable. But now no one complains. The silence is as heavy as when you are eating dinner and the TV shows real war news. You look at your bowl, then at the prisoner. A cold sweat runs down your spine. The centurion decides to move camp before dark. No one will ambush us if we move like falling rain, he says. And you move, fast, relentless, across the valley, through grasses taller than your knees, past a narrow stream where you wash your face and see your own in the water, tired, but alive. You think of an event from Augustus's time, the Teutoburg ambush. In 9 AD, 3 legions were completely annihilated by the Germans in the jungle. None returned. They say the trees still whisper the soldiers' names when the wind blows. You swallow. The jungle has always been someone else's home. One soldier asks, "What if they attack at night?" Another replies, "Then we won't see the faces of our killers." You laugh, not because it's funny, because if you don't laugh, you'll scream. At noon, a makeshift camp is set up at the foot of a rocky mountainside. There are few trees here, and visibility is good, but there is no water source. You are assigned to stand guard while others set up tents. The sun is hotter than usual. You take off your helmet and scratch your head. At that moment, you see a thin line of smoke in the distance. Not kitchen smoke, signal smoke. Someone is signaling someone. You report back. The centurion frowns again. He orders a short reconnaissance, a 3-man team. You volunteer. Why? Because you know it's no safer to stay. And at least when you're on the move, you feel like you're in control of something. The 3 of you follow the trail of smoke. After nearly an hour, you see it. A cluster of small, dry stone houses with wooden doors, smoke still rising from the ovens. But no people. No chickens, no children. You see footprints, many fresh, hurried. They had fled, knowing you were coming. You enter a house. On the table is a loaf of warm bread. Someone left less than 10 minutes ago. You break off a piece, soft, smelling of wood ash. A soldier says, "Villagers and soldiers are the same. When they are afraid, they skip meals." You nod, but say nothing, because you are afraid too, and you are chewing on some of that fear. As we return to camp, a debate breaks out. "We're hunting civilians," says one soldier. "Or are civilians a cover for murderers?" You interject. Historians still debate whether the Gauls organized a popular resistance or were just a few savage tribes. Perhaps we're not fighting an army, but a memory. No one answers. Back at camp, it's dark. You've been assigned to night patrol. Your eyes are stinging from lack of sleep. You circle the camp, watching the tents tremble in the wind, hearing snoring, grinding teeth, and in the distance an owl hoots. A cold sound. You ask yourself, if you were attacked tonight, what would be the first thing you would do? Grab a sword? Run? Scream? No one knows the answer until that moment actually comes, and you hope it never comes. Back in your tent, you lie down, pulling the thin blanket over your shoulders. The wind whistles softly outside the camp. You close your eyes, imagining yourself in Rome. The soft bed, smell of flowers, the soft sound of a lyre on the balcony. But instead, you have only hay, armor, and a heart beating faster than a drum. You mumbled half-jokingly, "Sharon, not today. Tomorrow." This sunrise is not the golden glow painted on a temple wall, but a pale streak of light peeking through thick clouds. You open your eyes and realize you're still alive. A small victory in a world where waking up is still a privilege. The camp was quieter than usual. No jokes were exchanged. No young soldiers boasted about dreaming about Roman girls the night before. Only the faint sound of metal, the sound of someone oiling a sword. A sound more reassuring than a promise from a blind god. The centurion orders a full inventory of the equipment. It could be a long day of marching. You lace up your boots, stretch your legs, and shoulder your pack. The burden feels like you're carrying the tax debt of a dozen Roman taverns on your shoulders. But you don't complain. Complaining is a form of weakness, and weakness has no place in the Legion. The group leaves the camp in silence. You march to the beat of the drums, over hillsides still wet with dew, past rocks that look like broken spearheads buried in the ground. In the distance, you see an ancient citadel, just a few crumbling stone walls. But there's something strange about it. The air is thick, as if time were trapped in every brick. The centurion stopped to look. "It might be a druid fortress," said a young soldier. "No," said an older soldier, shaking his head. "It's the remains of a Carthaginian outpost. They came all the way here before they were wiped out." You say nothing, but in your head the debate rages on. Did Carthage ever set foot in this region? Or is it just a legend fabricated by Rome to justify its expansion? Historians are divided. Still, you feel that this is not entirely foreign. Something about it feels familiar, part of Rome or part of memory. As the army continues on their journey, you see a sight that makes your heart stop. A hastily abandoned village. Pots and pans simmer on the stove. Baby clothes hang on the clothesline, but no one is there. You smell burning. Someone has written a strange symbol on the wall in blood or red paint. A spiral enclosed in an eye. No one can explain what it is. One soldier whispers, "The curse." The centurion showed no fear, but he didn't let anyone touch him. Just walked past. You didn't want to stay long. It felt like every step was waking something sleeping under the rocks. At noon, when the sun is high in the sky, the Legion stops to rest at the foot of a hill. You take off your shoes and massage your numb feet. A young soldier approaches and offers you a piece of cheese with a moldy corner. You smile and take it. In this world, a little mold is also flavor. You ask him why he joined the army. He replies, "Because I wanted to see the world." You smile faintly. "Be careful. The world is looking back at you, and it's not friendly." He nods, then asks you, "What about you?" You think for a moment, then say, "Because I lost a bet with fate." During the pause, a bugle sounded in the distance, not from the Legion. It was a long, harsh sound, like an animal screaming when its throat is cut. You jump to your feet. Everyone got ready. From the top of the hill, a group of men appeared. Not regular soldiers, but men in animal skins, with red faces, carrying axes and wooden spears. You looked at the centurion. He was calm, signaling not to attack. The others did not come down either. They just stood there watching. Then they turned away. "Just a threat," said one soldier. "They don't dare fight." Another whispered, "Maybe they're waiting for nightfall." You said nothing, but your neck felt cold, as if someone had just blown on it. As the army continued to move, you couldn't help but think indigenous tribal rituals. Some researchers say they use psychological tactics, appearing, disappearing, instilling fear little by little like dripping water on a rock. By the time you realize it, you've disintegrated from the inside. You pass by an ancient tree. Its trunk has strange carvings. A figure is hanging upside down. You have read in military documents that the Druids once sacrificed enemies by hanging them upside down and letting them be eaten alive by wild animals. Sounds like a horror story. But Rome did the same thing. So what's the difference? Only who writes the history. The afternoon is drawing to a close. The Legion sets up camp in a clearing near a small stream. The wind is picked up. The smell of dampness is everywhere. You pitch your tent, check your weapons, and take your usual walk around the edge of camp. In the distance, you see a fox watching. It doesn't run away. It doesn't fear. It just stands there like a spirit guarding the border between two worlds. You turn in. Someone is telling a ghost story in the tent next door about a Roman soldier who got lost in the woods and came back with no irises in his eyes. It must have been a mushroom, someone says. But you know, the woods are never just woods, and the darkness is never just darkness. As you lie down, wrapped in a blanket, you find your feet still stuck to the ground. You are too tired to wipe them, The wind outside whistles through the cracks of the tent, making a sound like human voices. You close your eyes, thinking of the roof in Rome where your mother used to grow jasmine in a small vase. You haven't smelled that scent in a long time. You mumbled, "If I open my eyes tomorrow, I will tell the story of jasmine to that young soldier." You wake in the middle of the night to a strange noise, like someone scratching at the tent with muddy fingernails. But when you spring up, grab your dagger, and push open the tent flap, there's nothing. Just the faint shadows of trees on the ground and the sigh of a stream. You breathe hard, your heart still pounding, as if you've been jolted from a deep dream. At dawn, as the guard's chain shifts, a soldier reports footprints around the edge of the camp. Not Roman, short, circular, swerving. Wolves, maybe, or something wolf-like, but with a long-distance eye. You hear the report, and then ask no more questions. Sometimes it's better not to know. Today you are sent on a patrol along the forest trail, a boring but potentially dangerous mission. You and 3 other soldiers enter the misty forest, where the light passes through like a few silver threads broken in midair. Each branch feels like a finger reaching out to grab you. One of the companions told an old story. A Roman army once got lost in this forest, and no one returned. The people called them the ghosts of the north. Warriors swallowed up by the forest. Though no one found their bodies, the sound of steady footsteps could sometimes be heard in the mist, as if the formation were still moving, never reaching its destination. You chuckled. "So, we are entering the belly of a collective ghost?" Another replied, "Better not let it know we are here." You continue your patrol, touching your sword sheath out of habit, your eyes scanning every sound. Then suddenly you stop. On a tree stump there is ancient Latin inscription. Roman soldier inscription very faint, but legible. 12 Fulminata, the name of a legion that was sent to guard this area and disappeared. An interesting fact is that the 12 Fulminata Legion was supposedly erased from the records after a disastrous campaign. No one knows where they disappeared to. Some say they were destroyed by the Parthian army. But there's also a theory. It was in this forest. You shiver. Have you just discovered a fragment of a centuries-old mystery? By the time we returned to camp, the sun was high in the sky. There had been no incidents, but everyone had the feeling that they had been walking on the thin line between this world and the other. In the afternoon, you attend spear-throwing training. The technique must be precise. Rotate your wrist, squeeze your shoulder, and then release as if you are throwing your anger at the target. A young soldier is slightly injured when his spear bounces back. You laugh. Your spear misses home. The centurion walks over, nodding in satisfaction as you bandage his arm. A good warrior is one who not only fights well, but also keeps others alive, he says. It may sound like more philosophy, but you know it's practical strategy. The military doesn't want to lose men over child's play. That night, you were assigned to stand guard, standing alone in the middle of the night, your eyes fixed on the forest. You remember the debate over the meaning of ancient Druid rituals remains unresolved. Some scholars believe that they sacrificed humans to connect with the gods of the land and the forest, to ensure a good harvest. Others believe it was a malicious rumor planted by the Romans to justify their invasion. Who is right? You don't know, but you stand in a land where faith and fear are one. Suddenly you hear singing soft, like a woman singing to a baby. The words are indistinct. You turn around, but there is no one. Your breath turns to smoke in the night. The singing fades away. It could be the wind, or the forest spirit checking to see if you are asleep. When your shift is over, you return to your tent and find a letter left in your bag. There's no sender, just a few lines written in smudged ink. Don't stare too long at what can't be named. There are questions that don't need answers. You frown. Who sent it? A joke? A warning? You tuck the letter into your shirt. It feels like you're entering a game with no rules. You lie down, breathing deeply. Your back aches. Your heart skips a beat. Your head feels like you've been carrying Atlas on your shoulders. But you're still alive. That's the reward. Every day that passes without being shot, hacked to pieces, or forgotten. A little V you draw in your life's book. You mumble. Your voice is dry as stone. Tomorrow, probably as gentle as kissing a tiger. Then you fall asleep, where you dream of a gilded city rising in the middle of the forest. Rome. But not Rome. You wake up to the pale morning light of diluted milk, seeping through the thick fabric of the tent like a warm blanket over your face. The mist is thick today, and you can feel it clinging to your eyelids and brows like a fine layer of ash. Outside, soldiers are building a fire, and a pot of barley porridge is bubbling. The smell of damp smoke mixes with the smell of wet wood and human flesh, a combination that makes you forget there was ever such a thing as perfume. After a breakfast of cold porridge and a few olives as wrinkled as an old man's toes, you are ordered to the outpost near the native settlement. They call it the Village of the Long-Lived, a place where the natives have never left, despite all the conquests and burnings. You set out with 3 other soldiers, passing mounds, small streams, clearings of forest. The village appears as a thin wisp of smoke deep in the valley, its houses made of rough-hewn stone and thick, thatched roofs. The people look at you as if you were something they had to endure, like mosquitoes in summer. Not enough to kill, but enough to hate. You try to smile, but you realize you forgot to exercise your facial muscles last year. An old man approaches, holding a basket of cheese that smells like old socks. He hands you a block, saying in broken Celtic and Latin, "A stomach does not argue with a sword." You don't quite understand, but you take it and nod. The thought crosses your mind. Maybe this is poison cheese. But then you shrug. If it's poison, at least it tastes salty. A young local man leads you to a deep pit behind the village where they say something fell last night. You examine it and find a piece of old armor, possibly from a Roman soldier from many years ago. Strangely enough, the armor belonged to a unit that was disbanded 2 decades ago. You turn to your guide and ask, and he simply says, "The forest doesn't forget. Just give it back in time." An interesting fact that few people know. The Roman army had a lost goods repository in each major province, where they stored weapons, armor, and even false teeth from retired soldiers. You'd think if this suit of armor hadn't risen from a grave, it would have just been walking around the village. In the afternoon, you are ordered to survey the water system. Some of the pipes leading from the hills to the camp show signs of being clogged. You wade across a shallow stream, mud sticking to your armor, and bend down to inspect. A snake slithers across your leg. Not venomous, just the kind the natives call the messenger of the forest god. Some scholars believe that snakes in Celtic culture symbolize cycles of time and rebirth, but another group strongly objected. They believed that the Romans had simply invented the symbols to make the wall drawings more appealing to the people of Rome. You're not sure, but you're sure that no one should step barefoot into a stream with a snake, whether it's carrying a letter or not. In the evening, you return to camp. There's a letter for you. It is written in Latin, but in a strange handwriting, curvy, as if the writer had never been properly trained. The content is quite strange. One walks in the forest without touching any leaves. The old questioner asked without touching the bone. He will see dried blood in the mirror, but still have to smile when looking back. You read it over and over. No signature, no stamp, no one to deliver it to. You fold it up and put it away with the strange letter from the night before. 2 sheets of paper, an indistinct conversation. You begin to wonder, is someone playing a game of cat and mouse? A call interrupted their thoughts. The camp leader called everyone to announce, tomorrow night there will be a ceremony to exchange with indigenous representatives, got a chance to network, but also to test who's on whose side. You've heard stories. At these parties, one wrong drink can lead to 10 years of war, or worse, being forced to marry the chief's daughter for looking at her for more than 3 seconds. You return to your tent, exhausted, but before you fall asleep, you jot down a few things from your memory. Someone left a letter for you twice. There's armor from the unit that has been missing for 20 years. There are dense forests and unexplained traces. You are not superstitious, but you are not naive enough to believe in coincidences. You lie down, head resting on your rolled-up jacket, and close your eyes. A light breeze passes by, like a cold hand brushing the back of your neck. You turn your head, thinking someone has just whispered in your ear. But there's no one. There's only the soft breathing of the barracks, and a very small laugh from somewhere in the forest. You whisper to yourself, your voice as soft as falling leaves. Tomorrow, I should sleep with my sword. This morning begins with the alarm clock blaring like a strangled goose. You open your eyes, still feeling groggy, as if you've just gotten into a fight with a bunch of Greek philosophers in your dream. You wake up to find something very strange. There's no fog. For weeks stationed in the northern woods, every morning had been thick with a cold, damp mist like mouthwash mixed with sand. But today, the air was as clear as if it had been freshly scrubbed. Was this a sign? An omen? Or was Mother Nature simply having a new hairstyle? You wash your face with water, so cold it could revive stale bread. Then you are summoned with a small group to the ceremonial area, where a meeting between Roman and native representatives will take place. The air was tense. Both sides were dressed in ceremonial garb, the Romans in red cloaks and gleaming armor, while the natives wore furs, amulets, and swirling paint on their faces. They looked like a group of Celtic metal fans leaving a music festival. You are assigned to stand guard at the back, but your ears are as wide as a store in the off-season. The camp governor speaks in stiff Latin, translated into the local language by a Galician interpreter. The native representative, a man with a gravelly voice, responds with a speech so long you think he is summarizing the history of mankind from the Ice Age to the present. Then came the offerings. The Romans gave swords, armor, and wine. The natives gave roots, honey, and a dead embalmed owl. The symbol of peace seemed a little different than you might expect. An interesting historical event occurred at these types of meetings during the early Roman conquest of Britannia. The Romans once accidentally offended a tribe by giving them wine instead of beer, causing the entire ceremony to turn into a fight with grilled chicken thighs. From then on, command required that all offerings be reviewed by a sober person. After the ceremony, the feast begins. The table is covered in animal skins, and there is roast venison, smoked fish, and a pudding that looks like clay mixed with lard when you eat it. A native hands you a glass of wine, his eyes thoughtful. You clink glasses, take a sip, and wonder if this is some kind of folk test of courage. Then suddenly, one of the natives pulled out an ancient amulet-like object, made of bone and precious stones. Showing it to you, he said through an interpreter, "This man has the mark of a lost man. He went through the forest and never returned." He looked you straight in the eye. You saw it, didn't you? You freeze. No one knows about the markings on the armor you found unless someone is watching. You calmly reply, "I just see what history left behind." He nodded slowly, then smiled. It was a smile that was both inviting and menacing, like a fox inviting you into the kitchen for more conversation. In the evening, when the camp returned to normal, you were called into the officer's tent. The camp commander asked directly, "What did you see in the forest? Don't beat around the bush like a philosopher." You consider, then tell. The armor of the 12 Fulminata, the strange letters. The natives mention the dead. The camp commander is silent. After a while, he says, "There are campaigns that are erased from the record for political reasons, and there are campaigns that are erased from the record because we don't want to remember." You leave the tent, head heavy. On the way back, a strange truth suddenly comes to mind. In the Imperial Library of Rome, there is a vague record of a northern forest gate, a place through which soldiers once passed and no one returned, but with no definite location. Scholars still debate, was the gate real, or was it a metaphor for an empire's confusion over the uncontrollable? Some archaeologists believe it was a crossroads of trade routes buried in the jungle. Others think it was a rift between two worlds. You're not sure who to trust, but you know, tomorrow, you'll walk through those woods again. This time, with the eyes of someone who knows something is looking back. You lie back. Your breathing is steady. But tonight, you do not dream. Because whoever hears the call in the woods will not be allowed to dream anymore. You wake up to a slightly different day. No longer foggy like before, but a blue sky. Clear as crystal. But the space still has an eerie stillness, as if the jungle is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. After a quick breakfast, you and a small group of soldiers are assigned to go deep into the mysterious forest that the natives call Gate of Ghosts. None of you say much, but your eyes are all wary, as if every step could lead to something untoward. As you enter the forest, you immediately feel the difference in the atmosphere. The sounds of birds suddenly fall silent. Only the sound of dry leaves underfoot resonates like a gloomy symphony. You remember the story you once heard about this forest. It is said that many Roman soldiers disappeared without a trace when passing through here, as if swallowed by nature itself. You begin exploring along an old moss-covered trail. Suddenly a strong scent wafts through the air, like the scent of some medicinal plant you've heard the locals use to treat illness, but can also be hypnotic and make you forget the passage of time. You inhale deeply and try to focus, but your mind wanders, as if pulled into another world. Suddenly, you hear a faint whisper, as if coming from underground, but no one is around to make the sound. You try to look closely, but all you see are shadows and flickering sunlight. You wonder, is this a reminder from the forest spirits? Or is it just a sign of temporary amnesia from the smell of the medicine? A historical debate rages among scholars. Were the mass disappearances of Roman soldiers in remote forests due to supernatural phenomena believed by the natives, or were they simply the result of harsh weather conditions and lack of food? Some scholars insist that it is evidence of ancient aliens, while others flatly dismiss it as a tragic accident of military campaigns. You don't know who to trust, but you know you need to be more vigilant than ever. As you continue on, you come across tree carvings, swirls, and strange symbols unlike anything you've ever seen in Roman history books. You remember the natives warning that these are the tracks of those who have gone and never returned. You stop, take out a small piece of paper, and write it down carefully, wondering, is this a clue to the secret of the forest? Or are these just signs to distract a curious person like you? At noon, the group stops to rest by a small stream. You wash your face, drink the cool water, and sit listening to the sound of the flowing water. A rare peaceful sound in the gloom of the jungle. A sense of peace passes, but you still feel an invisible pressure weighing down on your shoulders. When you return to camp, you receive another letter. This time, it contains only a few scribbled lines. You have listened to the forest. You have seen the traces, but the darkness has not slept. Prepare for tomorrow. You feel a sense of ambiguity, but you can't deny that you're being drawn into a game that's bigger than you thought. You wonder, are you embarking on an adventure that goes beyond the limits of learned history? Or are you just being swept away by the unstoppable flow of destiny? As the night sky slowly falls, you lie on your bed, eyes staring up at the tent ceiling, telling yourself, tomorrow, everything will change. You step out of your tent at dawn, and the air feels strange. Not the crisp freshness of a new day, but something heavy and oppressive, as if the forest were holding its breath, waiting for you to make a wrong move. You pull your armor tighter, knowing full well that it weighs as much as a modern microwave. The group was ordered to head through the denser woods, following what Roman maps called the Via Silvestris, the forest road, an ancient route whose true purpose historians still debate. Was it a trade route radiating from the heart of the empire, or simply a hunting trail? Some scholars have joked that it resembles the shortcuts in modern video games, alluring but fraught with pitfalls. As you might expect, as you go deeper into the forest, the light gets dimmer and the trees get taller, making you think you're lost in a natural maze. You recall a curious detail you read in research papers. The Romans carried something called a spicillum, a small iron rod used to read markings on trees and rocks in the forest, helping them navigate and identify hostile territory. You rummage through your bag, and thankfully the spicillum is still there, shiny as if it had just been purchased from the market. While your teammates take a break, you carefully examine the markings around you. Some are spirals, others look like animal tracks. You recall a story told in ancient texts. At times, the Romans used these markings to mark dangerous terrain or natural traps. Some modern scholars still debate whether this was the first form of a topographic map. If so, it would be evidence that the Romans had navigational techniques far more advanced than they had imagined. You begin to sense something is wrong, a sense of shadow passing between the trees, or at least the sound of light, unintelligible footsteps. You turn to look, but all you see is the silent forest and the leaves rustling in the wind. You think of the old story of the forest spirit, a legend told by the natives about ghosts who guard the forest from intruders. You suddenly remember, the last time you passed through this forest, a few soldiers disappeared without a trace. The remaining ones were so confused that no one dared to tell the details for fear of being considered crazy. Is this what you will face? Moving on, you come across a clearing, where the remains of an old fire remain, but there is no sign of recent human presence. But strangely, there's a bronze ring, engraved with a dragon, buried deep in the damp soil. You pick it up and realize that it is not an item that belonged to the Romans, but rather to an ancient Celtic tribe. Historical fact: in 43 AD, when Emperor Claudius ordered the conquest of Britannia, Celtic tribes used a variety of guerrilla tactics, including the use of magical symbols to confuse the Romans. Some archaeologists believe that the necklace you just found is evidence of a combination of war and superstition at the time. You put the item in your pocket, thinking to yourself, perhaps I am holding in my hand an important piece of the secret of this forest. As you and your group begin to make your way back to camp, the sun begins to set, leaving a blood-red streak across the sky. You think to yourself, tomorrow will be a bigger challenge. You wake up feeling like you've just woken up from a long dream, but in reality it was just a sleepless night in a cold, windy tent. Your palms are still shaking as you hold the copper bracelet you picked up yesterday, thinking back to ancient stories of Celtic tribes and forest magic. This morning, your mission is not to explore the forest, but to participate in a tactical training session with your comrades. A few old officers stand in front, giving a lecture in deep, firm voices on how to fight in dense forest terrain, something the Romans were not as proficient at as they were in plains battles. You may recall a curious fact. Despite their reputation for military engineering, the Romans had little experience in deep forest warfare. As a result, training and adapting tactics to the terrain has always been a subject of debate among historians. Some believe that the Romans were constrained by rigid discipline and formation structure. Others believe that they were quite flexible, but the records are incomplete. During training, you and your teammates practice maintaining formation as you move through dense jungle areas, avoiding separation and ambushes. The instructor occasionally yells out things like, "Stay in formation. Don't get left out," which makes you wonder if he's mistaken for a yoga class. After the training session, you rest in camp, but your mind is still reeling from the things you saw in the forest, the copper rings, the strange signs, and the stories told by the natives. You recall an ongoing scholarly debate. Was the Roman soldiers' fear of the jungle due solely to the terrain and climate, or was it also due to spiritual and superstitious factors passed down by the natives? Some historians believe that the combination of tactics and mystical stories created a state of psychological tension within the army. Late in the afternoon, You attend a brief meeting with senior officers. The camp commander talks about the next plan. There will be a deeper exploration into the forest to determine the exact location of the Gate of Ghosts and assess whether it is possible to set up a checkpoint. You feel the responsibility weighing on your shoulders because you are not only a soldier but also a person carrying the hope of finding out the truth. As the sun slowly sets behind the trees, you sit by the fire, looking up at the starry sky and wondering, will there ever be a time when you can sleep peacefully without being drawn into the mysteries of this deep forest? You wake up with a heavy feeling and a slight headache. Maybe it's from the anxiety of the night before, or maybe it's the smell of the damp straw hut. You pull your armor tighter, preparing for your deepest exploration, yet into the Gate of Ghosts. The group followed a new route, carefully marked on a map with strange symbols you would see in ancient books. The path was bumpy, overgrown with roots, requiring each step to be carefully calculated, like walking on a spider's web in an action movie. Suddenly, a distant growl rang out, making the group freeze, and you could feel your heart beating faster. It wasn't a lion or a bear. There were none of those in the forest. It sounded like the roar of a ferocious beast you'd never heard before, or even the echo of an ancient storm. Little-known fact, in Roman times, such expeditions into the deep forests were often limited not only by the dangers of nature, but also by the lack of knowledge about wild creatures that the Romans had never encountered. Historians still debate whether the stories of forest monsters told by the natives were simply exaggerations of primitive animals like wolves, or whether there were truly mysterious creatures that had never been seen before. But you don't have time to think too much, because now you have to concentrate. Walking through a clearing, you see footprints larger than a human hand, imprinted deeply in the soft ground. You blink, wondering, are these the traces of the forest ghosts that people still rumor? You remember the commander's warning, never go alone. This jungle does not forgive the weak. You tell yourself, today is not the day to be weak. As you approach the area known as the gate, you see a large boulder covered in moss and engraved with ancient characters. You use the spicillum stick you've brought with you to scrape away the moss, revealing ancient Latin writing. Although you can't translate it on the spot, you know that this is evidence of a civilization that once lived and disappeared into the darkness of this forest. Remember the joke a soldier friend told you. If you ever feel lost, remember that Rome had a single magic saying. Just ask a local. The trouble is, you never know if they're serious or joking. Finally, as dusk falls, you return to camp with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. You can feel the change in the air, as if the jungle is no longer waiting for you, but watching your every move. You return to camp as night falls, and the cold begins to seep through your armor, as if the jungle is reminding you that you are the true master of the place. You can hear small sounds from the tents around you, whispers, the rustle of dry leaves, even the steady breathing of sleeping soldiers. This evening was unusual. The camp commander gathered you and a few of your comrades around a roaring fire, the flickering light illuminating the tired faces of the men. They began to tell old tales, not of deeds or honor, but of things the history books rarely mention: ghosts in the woods, strange whispers as the moon rose, and mysterious disappearances of the bravest soldiers. You recall an interesting fact you once heard. The Romans, despite their reputation for rationality and discipline, also believed in the supernatural. They had forest gods, ancestral spirits, and even terrifying entities they called lemurs, restless ghosts. Stories of lemurs were told with awe and reverence, much like modern people talk about superheroes. Wondering if the strange noises and shadows in the woods are the manifestations of these spirits, historians still debate whether this belief influenced the fighting spirit and resilience of the Roman army, or whether it was just a harmless superstition. But you don't have time to think much about it, because that night there are signs of an ambush. Just as you're about to go to sleep, a loud noise comes from the edge of the forest, as if an invisible army is marching in. You and your teammates immediately take up battle positions, hearts pounding, cold sweat dripping down your foreheads. Luckily, it was just a herd of deer running by, but it was enough to startle you and remind you of the military joke. In war, don't fear the enemy. Fear the deer that stray into your camp. You lie down in your tent, trying to calm down. It feels like the jungle is breathing, deep and slow, intertwined with the rustling of leaves. You tell yourself, no matter what happens, I must survive. I must tell the next generation about this. The night passes in an eerie silence, as if the forest itself is waiting for something that is yet to happen. You lie in your tent, listening to the wind rustling through the leaves, the faint waves lulling you into a light sleep. But you know, another day in the life of a Roman soldier is not just about fighting, but also about fighting with your own mind, between truth and myth, between life and death. You recall all that you have been through, the weary steps through the old forest, the mysterious stories of the Gate of Ghosts, the Celtic Bronze Circle, the endless debates of historians, and the times you faced invisible fears that only those who were there could understand. You silently thank yourself for still being here, still being able to tell this story, not just to yourself, but to anyone curious about the life of an ancient Roman warrior. Your story is a journey, not just about battles and tactics, but about self-discovery and perseverance in the face of the unpredictable. And no matter how the world changes, those challenges, fears, and aspirations remain the same. You feel the softness of the darkness gradually enveloping you, the scent of the old forest blending with the breath of the night. The gentle rustling of leaves is like a final whisper, wishing you a good night. Let things go gently, and as you close your eyes, remember that tomorrow is a new opportunity to continue on the warrior's path, even if it is full of mysteries.